Alright, so this is the very last video on the history part of the course. It's on women's legal conditions throughout history. Of course, this will only be a very brief overview, just to give you a bit of introduction for the rest of the course. So let's get right in. Before the 20th century, so before the 1900s, women were considered minors. So their tutors were either their father or their husband. Um, Being minors meant that they couldn't have loans, leases, bank accounts in their names. They couldn't sign contracts. They weren't allowed to work if the husband didn't allow it. And they didn't have ownership of their goods. They didn't have property over their things once they got married. Um, a very big step was taken by Claire Coquelin-Pascal in 1964 when she passed Bill 16. You can actually see her in the photo right here. This bill allowed women to have legal autonomy from their husband. So basically, everything that I said in the last slide, women now had the right to do. They had the right to have a bank account and sign a contract and work if they wanted to. That was a very, very, very important step, probably the very first juridic step towards women having more rights. Of course, after the right to vote in 1940. In terms of marriage and divorce, before 1968, women were never allowed to file for divorce. Only men were allowed. In 1968, women became allowed to file for divorce, but there were very limited causes to file. Infidelity and cruelty, either mental or physical. In 1968, also in Quebec, civil women weddings were made lawful. So there was a bit of separation between the church and marriage, which was very important in terms of women's right to their bodies, for example. And it's only in 83 that marital rape became illegal. And actually, when the legislator proposed this bill in Parliament, he was laughed at because people in Parliament, the deputies, didn't think that husbands could rape their wives. So you can see this was not even 40 years ago, and we still thought that marital rape wasn't possible. So that's a very, very important lead in terms of protection against sexual violence for women. In terms of abortion, I kind of said a little bit in the last video, but abortion was legalized in '88 completely. It was it was permitted since '69. For example, if women were going to die, if they gave birth, or if the baby was dead. Um, who you see here is Morgan Toller, who was a, a doctor who did abortions for women for non-medical reasons before '88, and he was imprisoned and he was fined multiple times, but he's now seen as a women's rights activist who really took it upon himself to help women who needed abortions. And one last law or change in laws that I'm going to present is in terms of Indigenous women. So it's only in 1973 that Indigenous women earned the right not to lose their Indian status when they married a non-Indian. And the woman you see here is the one who contested the law and won. So you see, all of those gains are pretty recent. They're not very old. Um, and they were very big gains for protection of women in the law. But since they're so recent, sometimes the culture didn't necessarily follow. And of course, this course is focused more on sexual violence. The bill that I talked about, marital rape, is very recent. And I think what you can see from all those videos and all the texts you read up to now in terms of history for women in Quebec and Canada is that for a long time, women were extremely oppressed, And all the gains that we have and we take advantage of today are pretty recent. And that means that they're very fragile too. So we still have to fight and we still have to protect those rights to make sure us and our daughters and granddaughters still can benefit from those. So that's it for my first. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm going to let you with Caroline and Alexis for the rest of the course. Thank you.